Have you ever wondered if one choice, just one, could tip the world in a different direction? Like the flap of a butterfly's wings that becomes a hurricane somewhere far away. That question haunted Elias Ward even before the Pacific swallowed him into the belly of the U.S. Navy's deadliest submarine, USS Grayfin, the one sailors whispered about with a mixture of awe and fear. On the cold night before deployment, Elias sat alone on the pier, clutching a creased letter addressed to his sister, Marin. The wind tugged at the edges as if urging him to take it back, rewrite it, or perhaps speak the truth he had never dared to say. "I don't know if I'll come home." But the words remained trapped inside him. He folded the letter and tucked it close to his heart. And with that single choice, to say nothing, his life's path tilted in a direction he could never have imagined. The letter meant everything. Marin had been only 15 when Elias shipped out. She had hugged him so tightly he thought his ribs might crack. She had whispered, "Promise me you'll stay good. Promise me you won't let war change you." He promised. But even as he stepped aboard the Grayfin, he could feel the weight of that promise pressing into his chest, heavy as the ocean itself. The submarine smelled of machine grease and salt water, and men who had lived too long in steel corridors. The crew nodded politely, curious about the quiet newcomer with violinist's fingers and haunted eyes. Benji Torres, the sonar technician with loud laughter and a heart bigger than the engine room, clapped him on the back. "Welcome to the belly of the beast, man. Don't worry, we're all scared. Just some of us hide it better." Elias tried to smile, but he already felt the ocean tugging at him, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Commander Hale Rowan was a man carved by war, tall, rigid, jaw tight as if he chewed on guilt instead of food. He called Elias into his cramped captain's quarters, lit only by a red overhead lamp. "You're Ward," Rowan said without looking up from a map. "Top of your class, precise, analytical." Elias swallowed. "Yes, sir." Rowan finally raised his eyes, cold, sharp, but exhausted in a way no training could prepare a man to witness. "You think you know who you are," Rowan said, "but the sea reveals you, sometimes brutally." Elias wasn't sure if the captain was warning him or himself. Grayfin wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Formosa. Their original patrol route was safer, quieter, routine. But war never respects routine. The submarine USS Dallister vanished without a trace, and command needed a replacement immediately. Rowan gathered the crew. "We'll take Dallister's patrol," he said simply. No dramatics, no reassurance, just fact. But the silence in the room deepened. Everyone knew what that meant. Any area that swallowed an entire submarine wasn't safe for anyone. They had 4 days to disrupt Japan's supply lines, 4 days to deliver a blow powerful enough to slow the enemy advance. Benji whispered to Elias later, "If the ocean ghosts took the Dallister, they'll be looking for us next." Elias didn't need to believe in ghosts. He already carried one, the promise in his pocket. On the second night, while the Grayfin glided silently beneath a moonless sky, Benji's expression suddenly shifted. "Hold up. I've got screws. Multiple. Fast." He pressed his headphones tighter. "Convoy. Big one." Elias's breath caught, his first real combat situation. Rowan appeared in seconds, calm as ever. "Ward, firing solutions. Now." Elias's fingers trembled. Pressure stormed through his chest. Every number mattered. Distance, bearing, drift, speed. One mistake meant missing the enemy, or worse, exposing themselves. Benji whispered, "You've got this." Elias inhaled sharply, steadied himself, and input the coordinates. "Solution ready," he said. Rowan didn't hesitate. "Fire 1. Fire 2. Minutes later, 2 distant flashes. A Japanese freighter erupted into blazing orange, lighting the night like a second sunrise. The crew cheered. Elias didn't. He stared at the reflection of the flames rippling across the periscope lens and whispered a quiet apology no one else heard. Except Rowan. After the attack, silence wrapped the submarine like a shroud. Men celebrated quietly, slaps on backs, relieved grins. But Elias felt hollow. His stomach churned with a grief he didn't understand. He found Rowan alone in the control room later, watching the dark water. "I saw their faces," Elias said quietly. "You didn't," Rowan replied, "but you imagined them. That's enough." Elias nodded, throat tight. Rowan sighed, a deep, weary sound. "You don't have to stop caring. God knows it's better if you don't. But caring doesn't mean you can freeze. Do your duty, and afterward, live with honor." It wasn't comfort, but it was something close to truth. Morning brought hell. Sonar screamed. 3 Japanese destroyers bore down on them like wolves sensing a wounded deer. Depth charges exploded above and around them, water hammering the hull with bone-rattling force. Lights flickered. Dust fell from pipes overhead. Elias froze, hands shaking uncontrollably. Benji grabbed him. "Hey, focus. Look at me." Elias forced himself to breathe. Numbers came back into focus. Bearings aligned. His voice steadied as he shouted corrections over the chaos. Rowan barked orders, weaving the submarine through the underbelly of the enemy formation. It was like threading a needle through a hurricane. Finally, Rowan's voice sharpened. "Open tubes! Fire!" The torpedo hit the lead destroyer with a thunder that shook the sea. Flames shot skyward. The remaining ships scattered in confusion. Japan would later be shocked by the tactical precision of the escape. But in that moment, all Elias felt was relief and fear at how close death had come. Hours later, the ocean rested again. Elias found Rowan sitting alone in the mess, sipping terrible coffee with a contemplative stare. Without looking up, Rowan said, "You think I'm cold. I know you do." Elias hesitated. "I don't know what to think." Rowan tapped his mug. "My brother died at Pearl Harbor." Elias's heart clenched. Rowan continued, "I didn't join the Navy for revenge. I joined so fewer brothers, on either side, would have to die. You'd be surprised how many Japanese captains feel the same way." Elias blinked. Rowan finally looked at him. "Young men shouldn't have to carry the weight of nations, but if we must, let's carry it with humanity." For the first time, Elias understood the man behind the icy stare. On the final day of their patrol, fate placed temptation directly in their path. Benji's voice cracked with disbelief. "Captain, you're not going to believe this." On Sonar was a 5-ship convoy, 2 transports, 2 escorts, 1 tanker, moving through a narrow channel perfect for attack. The crew murmured in awe and dread. Rowan turned to Elias. "We only have 6 torpedoes remaining. Think we can pull this off?" Elias felt everything weigh on him, the letter, the promises, the men who trusted his calculations, the men on the ships ahead. His voice wavered, then steadied. "Yes, sir. I think we can." He didn't believe in ghosts, but he felt something guiding him. Maybe fear, maybe duty, maybe destiny. The Grayfin moved like a predator in slow motion, gliding beneath the surface as dusk painted the sky blood red. Elias lined up the tanker first. Rowan nodded. "Fire tube 1." The torpedo streaked through the black water. Seconds stretched like an eternity. Then, a massive explosion ripped through the tanker, sending flames spiraling into the sky. Smoke billowed into a thick pillar visible for miles. Chaos erupted among the Japanese escort ships as they scrambled in panic, breaking formation. Benji whooped. Men clapped shoulders, adrenaline surging. But Elias didn't celebrate. He watched the burning ship through the periscope and whispered the same quiet words. "I'm sorry." because he knew this was only the beginning. 4 more ships waited, and the ocean wasn't finished testing him. The ocean grew furious as the Grayfin maneuvered for its next strike. The convoy scattered like startled birds, escorts weaving in frantic arcs, transports pushing forward at full speed. Searchlights swept the water in wide, trembling beams. Inside the submarine, sweat slicked every brow. Elias's heartbeat synced with the thrum of the engines. Rowan whispered, "Steady, steady." Elias aligned the torpedo sights with mathematical precision, but in his mind, equations dissolved into faces, unknown men, clinging to railings, shouting orders, bracing for impact. "Fire tubes 2 and 3, Rowan commanded. 2 white streaks shot into the darkness. Seconds ticked like a funeral drum. Boom! A transport erupted in a column of fire, tipping slowly like a wounded giant before slipping beneath the waves. Boom! The second blast tore the stern off an escort, sending metal shrapnel raining across the water like a grim fireworks display. 3 ships gone. The Pacific roared like a beast awakened, but inside the submarine a heavier silence took hold, because everyone understood the awful truth. They were now deep inside enemy lines, almost out of torpedoes, and not done yet. The 4th ship, another mid-sized transport, became their next target. Elias worked feverishly, adjusting for drift, wind, current, and the unpredictable movements of a panicked convoy. His fingers flew over dials and keys with new, sharpened confidence. Rowan exhaled slowly. "Open tube 4. Fire." A click, a hiss, then nothing. The crew froze. Benji slammed a fist against the console. "No, no, no, don't do this to us now." A dud, a dead torpedo. Elias's stomach dropped. Days of pressure, fear, and unspoken guilt threatened to crush him. "Captain," he whispered, "give me 1 minute." Rowan studied his face. This young man who looked too gentle to be in war, yet carried the weight of it like a soldier twice his age. "What are you thinking, Ward?" "A 180-degree turn, a backwards shot. It'll take us behind the formation." Benji stared. "That's insane." Elias nodded. "Yes, but it's possible." Rowan inhaled deeply, then gave the most dangerous order of his career. "Helm, execute the turn." Outside, the ocean groaned. The Grayfin rotated in a slow, vulnerable arc, its belly exposed to enemy fire, its trajectory unpredictable, even to those operating it. Inside, every man held his breath. If they survived this maneuver, it would be nothing short of a miracle. The submarine tilted sharply as it swung around in a maneuver no combat manual would ever recommend. Depth gauges flickered, metal moaned, loose tools rolled across the floor, searchlights from the escort ships slashed across the water above them. Depth charges splashed into the sea with terrifying frequency. The Grayfin darted between them, barely slipping through curtains of exploding water. Elias shouted adjustments rapid fire. 5 degrees port. Maintain depth. Hold, hold. Now, bring us level. His voice, calm but fierce, echoed through the control room. Rowan lined up the shot. For one breath, the world held still. Fire tube 6. The last torpedo sped into the heart of the convoy. It struck the transport with thunderous force, splitting it open like a cracked shell. Flames erupted. Debris rained down. Men leapt into the sea. 5 ships, down in 4 days. Japan would later call the feat impossible. American commanders would call it genius. The crew of the Grayfin knew it differently. A miracle pulled from madness. Victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exhaustion. The crew slumped where they stood, some collapsing onto benches, others letting out laughter that sounded more like relief than joy. Rowan approached Elias. The captain placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," he murmured, "but don't mistake this for glory." Elias nodded slowly. There were hundreds of men on those ships, Rowan added quietly. Some will never go home. Some will. That's the nature of war. Elias felt the truth settle on him like a heavy coat. He went to his bunk, unbuttoned his uniform, and took out the letter to his sister. He looked at the words, "I promise I won't change." He knew now that promise was impossible, but maybe, just maybe, he could still choose how he changed. He grabbed a pencil and rewrote the final paragraph. When the Grayfin surfaced near Pearl Harbor weeks later, the sun broke across the water like a golden blessing. Men cheered from the docks. Newspapers flashed headlines. Officers saluted them with stunned respect. But Elias stepped onto the pier with a quietness that didn't match the celebration. Benji slung an arm around him. "Buddy, you helped take down 5 ships. Smile a little." Elias tried, but something inside him felt too heavy, too raw for celebration. A reporter shoved a microphone toward him. "Ensign Ward, how does it feel to be a hero?" Elias opened his mouth, then shut it. He didn't know how to answer. He didn't feel like a hero, just a man who had done what he had to do. The Navy held a grand ceremony days later. Polished floors, brass bands, medals gleaming under chandeliers, crowds applauding as officers shook hands and pinned honors to uniforms. When Elias was called to the stage, his heart pounded, not from pride, but from a strange unease. Captain Rowan stood behind him, refusing to smile even as applause thundered. When the medal touched Elias's chest, Rowan leaned forward and whispered, "Remember, medals shine, but they are forged from shadow." Elias swallowed hard. Later, as men celebrated, Rowan slipped out quietly. Elias followed and found him standing alone on a balcony overlooking the ocean. Rowan didn't turn. He simply said, "I've been given medals before. They don't erase the faces I remember." Elias realized then, the strongest men are often the most broken. Months later, Elias volunteered at a veterans hospital. One afternoon, a nurse approached him. "There's someone asking for the officer from the Grayfin." Elias walked into a quiet room and froze. The man in the bed was Japanese, thin, pale, a burn scar across his neck. His eyes softened the moment they met Elias's. "You were there," the man whispered in accented English. "On the submarine." Elias's breath caught. "You survived." The man nodded slowly. "I was on the tanker. I thought I would die, but you sank us close to the shore. Many swam, many lived." Elias couldn't speak. The survivor smiled faintly. "I have a daughter now. Because of that, I am alive." Tears welled in Elias's eyes, tears he didn't expect. War had taken many lives, but somehow, unknowingly, he had helped save this one. That night, Elias sat beneath a flickering lamp and unfolded the letter to Marin, the one he had rewritten after the battle. He stared at the new ending he had scribbled hastily weeks before. Then he added a final line, inspired by the Japanese sailor's words. "In war, we cannot choose who we harm, but sometimes, without knowing, we choose who we save." He sealed the envelope. For the first time, he felt something close to peace. Because the twist he never saw coming wasn't the miracle during battle, it was learning that compassion can echo louder than destruction, even across oceans, even across enemy lines. Before Elias left the Navy, Rowan requested a private meeting. The captain stood by the dock, hat tucked under his arm, breeze ruffling his graying hair. "You remind me of the officer I once hoped I'd be," Rowan said quietly. Elias blinked. "Sir, No. Let me finish." Rowan's voice trembled just slightly. "I thought war could only harden men. But watching you, seeing how you carried humanity through blood and fire, reminded me that goodness survives if we choose to protect it. Elias swallowed hard. Rowan extended his hand, a rare gesture from a man who commanded through silence. You passed the sea's test, Ward, not by being fearless, but by being human. Elias shook his hand firmly, feeling the weight of those words settle into his soul like an anchor of purpose. Years passed. Elias married, had a daughter of his own, and became a teacher who spoke to classrooms and veterans' halls, not about glory, but about humanity. When people asked him about the Grayfin mission, he never described the explosions, the terror, or the headlines. He always ended the story with the same quiet, powerful message. Have you ever wondered how much one choice can change? Because once, deep under the Pacific, I made a choice that sank ships, and years later, brought life into the world. The audience would always go silent, leaning in, waiting, and he would smile softly and say, "War tried to change me, but I chose compassion, and that choice changed everything." The legend of the Grayfin lived on in history books, but the legacy of Elias Ward lived in hearts.